Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Spirits and Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Carly Bird. Guess what, everybody?
It's week 44. Well, yeah, last one was 42. It means this one's 44.
Oh, I'm going to strangle him.
Making sure.
Everyone's about to witness a murder.
That's fine. We finally tell a ghost story then.
You would haunt me. Would you haunt me for the rest of my days? What would you go haunt? If I killed you and and your body was buried in the backyard, who would you haunt first?
You and Seth. I'd probably just take your covers off. Make the dog bark.
In the middle of the night. That would be so
Take
mean.
Take the covers off, turn the lights on and
Payback,
off.
basically, for every single night of your life since you've met me.
Pretty much. Make the dog get up at night, turn the lights on and off, scratch at your door when
That's
you're
all
working.
You would do? When you were... That would be bad. I would be so pissed off if I heard constant scratching at my office door while I was trying to work and focus.
Push shit off your table while you're working, that kind of stuff.
I would lose it.
Seth, I don't know. I would hopefully could talk to I could break through and talk to other people and just keep calling him fat or just ugly or something like that. Just harass him psychologically the rest of his life.
Call him fat?
Mm-hmm.
He's probably never heard those words before in his life.
Yeah, that's why it'd be hilarious.
Okay.
Just try to emotionally damage him.
So he would know it was you right away.
Because plus I'd have ability never to get tired of doing it apparently if I was a ghost. So
true.
That'd be fine.
You'd never get bored of doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Oh, pilot.
Yeah.
But hey guys, week 43. Yeah, we had a technical difficulty on Friday when we tried to do a live stream. So we're here now. We're just doubling up to make sure we make up for it. So for today's drink, I get to find it. We are doing something a little bit different. We are drinking a ginger beer.
Yep.
Or as they call it in Germany, beer with ginger. And we put a fuzzy in it. We put a seltzer drink in it, not a fuzzy. That'd be weird. I don't know what the fuck a fuzzy would actually be.
So weird.
But we put a seltzer in it, a lemon seltzer or a lime seltzer.
It's like a lime.
Lime seltzer with ginger beer.
I just mixed it in there.
Then we grinded up some mint too. Usually this is our third glass. That's why there's a mint in it. And it's actually
that's why he called it a fuzzy and not a fizzy. Ew.
It's actually really good. It's really it's summertime.
Yeah.
It's very summery. Carly, what do you got going on for us today?
Well, Tom, I again put some research and some time into this episode, and I came across two different stories and I wanted to share them both. And I realized that each of these stories had their own culture and called the monster something different. However, it was basically the same monster. So what I decided to do was do a little bit more digging on why these monsters were called different names and where they both originated from. And we're gonna have a part 1 and a part 2 this evening.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Well, what's gonna happen is most likely it's gonna be one episode is a part 1 and then the second episode will be a part 2. But we're gonna have that ready to rock and roll for next week.
That's so cool. Okay. So week 43 and week 44 will be 2 different episodes. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's just get into it.
All right. So I kind of want to put us in the mood and set the scene for you here. In the stillness of the night, you walk down the winding road. You are increasingly growing more wary of your surroundings, certain that you should have reached your destination by now. Suddenly, you see a light just over the crest of a hill. Eagerly, you hurry towards it and are relieved to see a young woman sitting by a small fire. You approach and see her smiling, beckoning you to come closer. Upon reaching the fire, you try to speak, but suddenly you notice movement out of the corner of your eye. You watch in terror as a pack of white, humanoid figures rush towards you. Your feeling of dismay grows stronger as the woman by the fire begins to undergo a transformation that reveals her to be another one of these beasts. The sinking feeling grows in your chest as you remember the warnings to avoid traveling these parts at night. But it's too late. The Skinwalkers are upon you.
Wow. The Skinwalker mythology.
Yep. Welcome to it. So the first monster is the Skinwalker. I sent you a few pictures, so I didn't know if you minded pulling some of those up.
I do not mind at all, Miss Bird.
They are called the Navajo Skinwalkers, witches of the Southwest. In the Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. This witch is called a Yi Naladushi by the Navajo, which translates to "with it he goes on all fours." It is just one of the several types of Navajo witches, and it's considered the most volatile and dangerous. For the Navajo people, witchcraft is just another part of their spirituality and one of the ways of their lives. As such, witchcraft has long been part of their culture, history, and traditions. Witches exist alongside humans and are not supernaturals. The Navajo believed that there are places where the powers of both good and evil are present, and that those powers can be harnessed for either. Medicine men utilize these powers to heal and aid members of their communities, while those who practice Navajo witchcraft seek to direct the spiritual forces to cause harm or misfortune to others. Understand the difference?
Mm-hmm.
This type of Navajo witchcraft is known as the Witchery Way,
Hmm.
which uses human corpses in various ways, such as tools from the bones and concoctions that are used to curse, harm, or kill intended victims.
Well, that is very unsettling. I'm not going to lie. So it's like a mutant dog thing, basically. Is that generally
Basically.
what they take on the form? A skinwalker is a dog,
Most commonly a dog,
a
yes.
bipedal. Is it called bipedal?
I don't know, but it's like a
Quadrupedal?
coyote type hyenas actually is what they are typically like morph into.
Okay, that's
Pretty creepy.
that's creepy. And this really gets back to like the whole Skinwalker Ranch craze, then, right?
Yes, exactly. So the knowledge of these powers are passed down from the elders through the generations. The Navajo are part of a larger culture area that also includes the Pueblo people, Apache, Hopi, and UTE. I don't know how to pronounce that. Ute, and the other groups that also have their own versions of the Skinwalker, but each includes a malevolent witch capable of transforming itself into an animal. Among these tribes, a number of stories and descriptions have been told throughout the years about the Skinwalkers. Sometimes these witches evolved from living their lives as respectful healers or spiritual guides who later chose to use their powers for evil. Though they can be either male or female, they are more often male. They walk freely among the tribe during the day and secretly transform under the cover of night.
Wow.
In order to become a skinwalker, he or she must be initiated by a secret society that requires the evilest of deeds: the killing of a close family member, most often a sibling. After this task has been completed, the individual then acquires supernatural powers, which gives them the ability to shape shift into animals. Most often, they are seen in the form of coyotes, wolves,
there you go. Okay.
foxes,
Wow.
cougars, dogs, and bears, but can also take the shape of any animal. They then wear the skins of the animals they transform into, hence the name Skinwalker. Now it makes sense. Sometimes they also wore animal skulls or antlers atop their head, which brought them more power. They choose what animal they want to turn into, depending on the abilities needed for a particular task, such as speed, strength, endurance, stealth, claws and teeth, etc. They may transform again if trying to escape from pursuers. Because of this, the Navajo considered it taboo for its members to wear the pelt of any predatory animal. However,
Ah,
sheepskin, leather, and buckskin were acceptable.
that is weird. Why not doing that? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Probably to differentiate themselves from the skinwalkers, so
but
that if they
you can't
met
do a prey. You can be prey, but you can't be the
predatory,
predator.
right?
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they probably just it's something to stand up for or stand against. Be like, we're not this type of people, or we're not the type of people to be
Listen,
witches.
I'll go to deer and I'll wear a deer skin, but I'm not the type of person that'll wear
A coyote.
a coyote skin. I have boundaries.
Exactly.
I have morals.
Morals. The skinwalkers are also able to take possession of the bodies of human victims if a person locks eyes with them. After taking control, the witch can make its victims do and say things that they wouldn't otherwise.
Wow.
Once they were shapeshifters, One way that others could tell that they were not a real animal is that their eyes are very different than those of an animal.
Hmm.
Instead, their eyes are very human, and when lights are shined on them, they turn bright red. Alternatively, when they are in a human form, their eyes look more like animals.
But again, it's like, okay, bright red, but it's like a lot of animals' eyes turn bright red. So it's like, wouldn't that like be like, oh shit, is everything a skinwalker? Like, I don't know about that one necessarily.
I guess I see what
It's
you're
like
saying.
if you see a creature with fur, it's a
And
skinwalker.
reflective light in
Yeah,
their
it's just like
eyes.
it's I don't know. It's like it reminds me of the Salem witch trials. It's like, listen,
Right. If you burned to death,
you're a witch.
you're a witch, but you
Yeah.
might also not have been a
Yeah,
witch.
it's like a little like same vibe I'm picking up. Same vibe. Anyway.
Anyway, the evil society of the witches gather in dark caves or secluded places for several purposes: to initiate new members, plot their activities, harm people from a distance with black magic, and perform dark ceremonial rites. These ceremonies are similar to other tribal affairs, including dancing, feasts, rituals, and sand painting, but were corrupted with dark connotations. The evildoers are also said to engage in necrophilia with
Oh boy.
female corpses,
Yeah.
commit cannibalism,
Ugh.
incest, and grave robberies.
Wait, in that order?
Just any of them
Okay.
at any time.
So it's not saying like necrophilia is the worst.
Right.
But then like all this other stuff is like less, because I don't know if I agree with that
No,
system.
no. I wasn't saying there was a worse or less. I was saying they do all of
It's like
these
number one,
heinous
fucking a
crimes.
corpse. Number two is eating somebody.
Exactly. No, they weren't. I don't think they were chronologically saying anything about that.
Are corpses the first sex doll ever made?
They were not made.
All right. I wouldn't it, get my point though.
During these gatherings, the skinwalkers shapeshift into their animal forms or go about naked, wearing only beaded jewelry and ceremonial paint. The leader of the skinwalkers is usually an old man, who'd have thunk that, who is a very powerful and long-lived skinwalker.
It's probably the
Mhm.
drunk
Yeah,
grandpa
sure.
that's like wearing the furs, scaring the crap out of
Exactly.
people around the hut.
Or the old
Yeah.
uncle that's just like
Yeah.
never settled down because he was too ugly and nasty and crude.
That is definitely you were like speaking to some kind of life.
And now he's out there dancing with beads on. Okay. Skinwalkers.
Stefan, man who danced with beads. You never settle down or find wife.
I am now Witcher. Okay, anyway. Skinwalkers also have other powers, including reading others' minds, controlling their thoughts and behaviors, causing disease and illness, destroying property, and even death.
Wow.
Those who have talked to their encounters with these evil beings describe a number of ways to know if a skinwalker is near. They make sounds around homes, such as knocking on windows, banging on walls, and scraping noises on the roof. On some occasions, they have been spied peering into windows. More often, they appear in front of vehicles in hopes of causing a serious accident.
Wow.
Literally sounds like ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
You would have the same thing with ghosts.
Oh yeah,
right?
100%.
So like the scratching at the door, just like we were talking about, you would haunt me, and then like ghosts out in the middle of the road, like a place where they had died previously, like from a car accident, and then that causes accidents. It is said that in addition to being able to shapeshift, the skinwalker is also able to control the creatures of the night, such as wolves and owls, and to make them do its bidding. Some are able to call up the spirits of the dead and reanimate the corpses to attack their enemies. Because of this, the Indians rarely ventured out alone.
Wow.
That's terrifying.
That is very terrifying.
Its supernatural powers are uncanny, as they are said to run faster than a car and have the ability to jump high cliffs. They are extremely fast, agile, impossible to catch, and leave tracks that are larger than those of any animal. When they have been seen, they have been described as not quite human and not fully animal. They are usually naked, but some have reported seeing the creature wearing tattered shirts or jeans. Before
like
you make a comment, I need you to show our viewers the picture that looks like a goat man that I sent you.
Okay, cool.
Because that's what goes along with this section of the article.
Because that's like all creepy as hell.
But exactly, it's like a werewolf.
Yeah, no, it is. It
I
is.
was thinking werewolf the entire time I was reading all of this stuff earlier today. I was like, okay, this is exactly like a werewolf situation, but it doesn't get into like killing them with silver bullets or anything like that. I think it later does tell you how you
But it
can.
really does get into that same mythology. Wow, that is unsettling.
Yeah, look at its toes. Look at its feet. Look how its toes separate.
Ugh.
I know, isn't that creepy? Looks like an alien with goat
It looks like
horns.
this got hit by a trail cam, is what it looks like.
I know.
Like a deer trail cam.
Yeah,
That is unsettling.
it's a deer goat man.
Why would you pick a goat as the animal you turn into, though?
I don't know. I don't know why anyone would
And
do
not like a wolf.
that. So he can climb a mountain? I really don't know.
With those fucking feet?
Yeah, dude, look at those toes. They could grip nothing.
That's unsettling. That's so unsettling.
Okay. So the Skinwalker kills out of greed, anger, envy, spite, or revenge. It also robs graves for personal wealth and to collect much needed ingredients for use in black magic. These witches live on the unexpired lives of their victims, and they must continually kill or perish themselves. Skinwalkers and other witches have long been blamed for all manner of unexpected struggles and tragedies through the years, including sickness, drought, poor crops, and sudden death. Even smaller or individual problems such as windstorms during dances, alienation or affection by mates, the death of livestock, and reversal of fortune were often believed to be the work of the witch. This was most apparent with the Navajo witch purge of 1878, which initially evolved from a cultural response to so many people moving across into their lands. After a series of wars with the U.S. Army, the Navajo were expelled from their land and forced to march to the Redondo, Fort Summer in Mexico, in which is known as the Long Walk of the Navajo in 1864. You probably could tell me more about that than I could tell you, since you're a history buff.
That's pretty interesting, though.
There, the people suffered from bad water, failed crops, illness, and death, reducing their numbers dramatically. After 4 years, the government finally admitted they had made a mistake, and the Navajo were allowed to return to their homeland
Our bad.
in the Four Corners area. Yeah, my bad. You guys can come back now. During these years, many of the tribe's members were said to have turned to shape shifting to escape the terrible conditions. In the meantime, the rest of the tribe were convinced that their gods had deserted them. Once the people had returned to their homeland, their conditions improved, but the dreaded skinwalkers, for whom they blamed for their years of bleak reservation, were still among them. Accusations of witchcraft and hunting of the skinwalkers began. When someone found a collection of witch artifacts wrapped in a copy of the Treaty of 1868, the tribal members unleashed deadly consequences. The Navajo Witch Purge occurred in 1878, in which 40 Navajo suspected witches were killed in order to restore harmony and balance for the tribe. Today, most of the tales of the sighting of these witches do not include death or injury, but rather are more trickster like. Numerous people have told stories of swift animals running alongside their vehicles, matching their speed. After a short period, however, they run off into the wilderness. Along the way, these animals sometimes turn into a man who sometimes bangs on the hood of the car. Another story tells of a man who was making repairs on an old ranch home when he began to hear loud laughter coming from the nearby sheep pens. Thinking he was alone, he went to investigate and found all of the sheep but one huddled in a corner of the pen. However, there was a lone ram separated from the group that was standing upright and laughing in a very human manner. After the man locks eyes with the ram, he sees that his eyes are not that of an animal, but like a human's eyes. The animal then casually walked away on all four legs. Some say they have seen them running along through the night, turning into a fiery ball, leaving streaks of color behind them. Others have seen angry looking humanoid figures looking down on them from cliffs, mountains, and mesas. In the 1980s, one of the most notable events occurred when a family was driving through the Navajo reservation. As they slowed to make a sharp curve, something jumped from the ditch. It was described as black, Harry and wore a shirt and pants. A few days after this event, at their home in Flagstaff, Arizona, the family was awakened to the sound of loud drumming and chanting. Outside their home were three dark forms of men outside their fence.
Mm-mm.
However, these shadowy creatures were seemingly unable to climb the fence and soon left. Thank goodness they had a fence. These events have occurred in the Four Corners area of southwest Colorado, southeast Utah, northeast Arizona, and northwest New Mexico.
I wonder why it's those areas.
In the 1990s, a ranch in northeast Utah, far away from the Navajo reservation, became the partial focus of the Skinwalkers. Called the Sherman Ranch, the Skinwalker Ranch, and the UFO Ranch, this place has a history of UFOs, aliens, cattle mutilation, and crop circles. Located near the Ute Indian Reservation, these people have long thought that the Navajo put a curse on their tribe in retribution for many perceived transgressions, and since then the Skinwalkers have plagued that area. Witchcraft represents the antithesis of Navajo culture values and is not tolerated. They work to avoid it, prevent it, and cure it in their daily behaviors. However, when it exists, their laws have always said that when a person becomes a witch, they have fortified their humanity and their right to exist, so they must be killed.
That's pretty brutal.
I know, it's like one way, black and white, very black and white. However, skinwalkers are notoriously hard to kill, and attempts are usually unsuccessful. Trying to kill one will often result in the witch seeking revenge. Successful killing generally requires the assistance of a powerful shaman who knows spells and rituals that can turn the skinwalker's evil back upon itself. Another alternative is to shoot the creature with bullets that have been dipped in white ash. However, this shot must hit the witches in the neck or the head.
That is very specific.
I know. Well, remember they just did like
White
a mass
ash, and then you have to actually cap him in the neck or the head.
in the neck or the head. And remember they just did this mass killing back in the 1880s or something. Traditionally, the Navajo will not speak with outsiders about these creatures for fear of retribution by the skinwalkers. For that matter, it's a taboo subject amongst the natives themselves. And that's it.
I don't know. That's just pretty crazy. Thinking about like this whole history and like it's almost like how the Salem witch trials went for the settlers as they moved into America. It's kind of like the same thing, but it's really for the Native American people.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so interesting to hear about the Native American people having these witch-like creatures in their culture, just because, like, no offense to that culture and everything like that. I'm fascinated by that culture, but what I'm trying to get at is they were very holistic
Mm-hmm.
and everything like that, and had their own religion. You know, when I think of Indians, I kind of think of like worshiping trees and the sun and things like that, because that's what grew the plants and made the oxygen and things like that. So whenever you think that they talked about witches, it's like, okay, but you kind of were all that's already within like your culture.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that any better, but I think you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I do. No, that's really interesting information. Really to kind of paint the story that we're going to get into today. Like it really gives you context to everything.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was hoping that's a little bit longer than I wanted it to be because the story's kind of short, but the story is specifically about New Mexico and the Navajo Indians.
Ooh.
Yeah, so prepare yourselves for an encounter with a skinwalker. I stumbled upon this forum after my friend had sent me a link a day or two after I had told him my story on the res. The story is 100% true. Whether you believe me or not, it's up to you. I'm just sharing what happened to me. This all took place on a long time ago when I was about 14. For background information, I'm Indigenous Mexican and Navajo. The culture difference is somewhat large, and I tend to practice my cultural roots within my Navajo side. But I'm also very close to my native family that resides in the States. My family, the four of us, had planned a last-minute trip to Arizona. going to say that sentence again. My family, the 4 of us, had planned a last-minute trip to Arizona. We had made arrangements to stay with some family that lived on the reservation. Though, considering how small dwellings are on the res, my parents thought it would still be a good idea to stay at least a few days, since that meant we got to see the family we hadn't seen in years. And my brother and I would be able to see our cousins, whom we were very close in age to, especially since it meant less money they had to spend on a motel. The first day, being the moody teens we were, my cousin and I thought it would be fun to roam the open fields that surrounded the res. We were hoping to get away from all of the noise in the house and avoid the same boring adult questions, how's school going, etc. We wandered pretty far enough that the houses were out of sight. The walk was fairly normal until we began heading back. About halfway back, we noticed a coyote off in the distance. Nothing out of ordinary, but we obviously didn't want to get close to it.
Yeah.
But that's when it got kind of weird. We heard a whistle coming from somewhere around where the coyote was at. Something like what you'd hear when someone was calling a dog back. My cousin and I got kind of spooked, as we didn't see another person around, and the last thing we wanted was to be 2 small girls alone in a field with a hidden creep as the sun was setting, especially with how many murdered and missing Indigenous women had been taken. We just kept walking, keeping our distance, but that's when we had an inkling we were being watched. We looked around and noticed the coyote still a few meters behind us. My cousin got spooked and we picked up the pace until we got home. Yeah. The next morning was whatever. The adults had left us and driven off to go gamble, so it was just the 4 of us teens left alone for a few hours.
Going to an Indian casino to gamble.
I guess that's what they do on their vacation. I don't know. As night rolled around and our parents had texted us to check in to tell us they'd be out late, nothing new. So we all just pulled out our Game Boys and Nintendo devices and played for a while until my brother called me over to the window. He told me he heard footsteps and leaves outside and wanted someone else to look out the window with him. I did, and I didn't see anything out of the ordinary other than noticing the eerie silence. But after that, it was quiet for another hour or so. And then the noises became more frequent. This time we all heard them and the house became silent as we all just listened. At first it was leaves crunching, then taps at the window and the sides of the house. But then there was such a weird smell. It was super terrible and disgusting, but just strong enough to be nauseating. My older cousin told us he thought it was a skinwalker trying to mess with us. I, at the time, thought it was a dumb idea and probably just the res dogs. If you've ever been on the res, you know how crazy those damn dogs are. It just kept getting creepier and creepier, though. Faint talking outside could be heard around 9. And then, my gods, the most painful headache I've ever gotten just appeared so suddenly. I remember crying and feeling so dizzy. I've never felt such pain before. The adults got back shortly after, and I felt better. The more noise that they brought with them, the easier it was to go to bed that night. Day 3. This time it was midday, and I was looking out the open window, just trying to get some fresh air while everyone else was in the living room. I saw the same coyote. This is very odd, as coyotes are mostly nocturnal animals. They're not very active in the day, and they don't tend to get close to humans, just for the hell of it. This time, though, it was closer, and the sun allowed us to see all of the details. Standing a few meters away, it was bigger than coyotes I usually see. It was longer, and it just looked at me, unblinking.
Ugh.
I heard the name whistling. I heard the same whistling sound, and as the hair on the back of my neck and arms stood up, I noticed its eyes, oddly discolored and not very animalistic. Patches of fur were missing. I heard the same whistling sound, and as the hair on the back of my neck and arms stood up, I noticed its eyes, oddly discolored and not very animalistic. Patches of fur were missing, and it made me feel sick, so I closed my eyes and locked the window and left the room. When night came around, the adults went to bed, and I was having such a hard time sleeping. I remember I had the chills and a fever, and the tapping and crunching came back. It felt like it was so much louder than it actually was. My younger cousin laid in bed with me. She said the noises were keeping her up too, and she had a bad feeling. That spooked me, I'll admit. We believe young children and animals can perceive what we cannot. We fell asleep after a while of laying in silence, listening to the noise, and then when morning came, it was the end of that trip. We left for a hotel for the rest of the week and everything was fine. Even years later, every time I visit the family on the res, I always find myself on edge. I always feel like something is watching me and pushing me to leave, though nothing crazy like that had ever happened again.
That's your spidey sense telling you something, and you probably should listen to it.
My cousins and I still remember. I still get vivid dreams of the whole thing. Now you can chalk it up to whatever you want. Maybe it was just a mangy Red's dog, or a teen's active imagination. Nonetheless, it was scary as hell, especially when you grow up hearing about skinwalkers, ghouls, etc. I've thought of every mundane possibility. Us natives don't throw around the word skinwalker at every creepy experience, I promise. I just can't find an explanation for why I felt so terrible and icky. And that was the tale of my encounter with the skinwalker.
Ooh. Yeah, it's just the idea that it really reminds me of the Wendigos, the werewolves, things of that ilk. Like the idea of like if you do something heinous, whether it was like with Wendigos, like if you eat a human, if you go to cannibalism, boom, you become this thing. Werewolves, I believe, have the same kind of lore to it, which we'll get into this coming Halloween. Is more of the werewolf stuff, or this. It's just so weird how all these things kind of connect to each other. And this also reminds me of something else that hopefully we'll be doing an episode on this, which is this really cool documentary. It's eerie, which is called Missing 411.
Oh yeah,
which is like makes you think. Really
UFOs, Bigfoot,
something
takes people in the woods, and the people are either
gone.
never found or found miles and miles and miles and miles away from where they were supposed to be in the first place.
But this reeks of that too, like in the deep woods.
Yeah,
where like you get out there and then things change in the woods. Like the one thing in this show that I kept thinking about while listening to you is like all of a sudden you hear birds and bees and stuff, and all of a sudden everything like it just sucks away. Like it's like you're in a vacuum, and then something bad happens, which usually is what happens when a big predator, a cat or something, is around, or something like that. Like something changes, like there's another presence felt in the woods and everything shuts off. Really get that vibe there. I don't know, the whole thing about fucking a corpse though, that kind of like blew me out of the water there. Like that's the number one thing. So what they're saying is there's a lot of people back then that were fucking corpses that would turn them into skinwalkers. So apparently that was a big problem back then. I don't know. That's interesting. That's a really cool story. I'm glad we finally did a skinwalker. It's been almost a year and we haven't actually gotten into the skinwalker mythology.
That was part 1 of the skinwalker.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So guys, stay tuned next week for part 2. But first, it is my time to do this cool segment, which I actually enjoy. It's a lot of fun because it really shows you how weird our world is, which is scary stuff in the news. Carly, when you think of a Loch Ness monster, what do you think about?
I think about a dragon in the water.
I mean, what part of the country do you think about?
Typically,
where do you think a Loch Ness monster's from?
Like Scotland.
Yep. Well, this one here is from China.
Oh, China.
So I thought this one was cool. China gripped after sighting of its own Loch Ness monster. This was back in September 2019 by the BBC. Grainy footage shows something that appears to have a tail slithering back and forth in the water. Something is lurking in the deep in China's famous Yangtze River. Did I say that wrong? Yangtze?
You said it correctly.
Oh, yes.
But you said it with an accent.
Yangtze. And social media discussions is rife over it may be. On Friday, footage appeared of this thing. So here it is. Let's get back down to here.
Is there actually a video?
It looks like there was a video, but it was taken down.
Oh,
But it kind of gets into it. Let's see, we're get back to here. Locals are filmed watching this creature from shore, and social media users have similarly been captive over theories about what the creature might be. Many have posted using the hashtag. Sorry, guys.
wow.
3 gorgeous monster photo, and specialists have begun to weigh in with their thoughts. Loch Ness monster may be just a giant eel. And this kind of gets into the next cool thing, which is the Loch Ness monster might just be a giant eel. And this talks about too, and this is another article, guys. We'll link into the episode description here, which is researchers from New Zealand have tried to catalog all living species in the loch by extracting DNA from water samples. It's so fucking cool that we can do that nowadays. I'm sorry.
That's insane.
Just DNA, water, and like, I know what's living here.
wow.
Following analysts, scientists have ruled out the presence of large animals said to be behind reports of a monster. No evidence of a prehistoric marine reptile called a plesiosaur or large fish, such as a sturgeon, were found. Catfish and suggestions that a wandering Greenland shark were behind the sightings were also discounted. So this kind of gets into the idea that they think it's actually a giant eel that was doing it, which you can see things like this.
Yeah.
Juvenile eels known as livers arrive in the Scottish rivers and lochs after migrating more than 3,000 miles from the sea near the Bahamas, where the animals spawn and lay their eggs. Think about that. That is a hell of a journey that these things go on.
Like, why did
From
they go that
Bahamas to
far?
Scotland. That's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But so now what they're thinking is maybe it was some kind of like super giant eel. I think this picture is like really goofy, but but Nessie made.
It looks like a carnival ride.
Yeah.
Look at that thing.
Look at his eyes.
It honestly looks like a possessed giraffe.
It looked like a giraffe. Yeah, that's waterlogged and has to take a massive shit.
Yes.
It's like, don't let constipation do.
Get out the way.
It does get a little horn just like a giraffe would.
Yeah, I know.
But his eyes are bulging out like, oh god.
There's no ears though.
But anyway, so yeah, that's a very interesting thing. Like, they're even experiencing right now Loch Ness monsters there.
Yeah,
So
but like, why was the footage right there from 2019, but all black and white and grainy?
Okay, I will. You're right.
Come on.
It's so weird that even nowadays, when you see Loch Ness monster photos or Bigfoot or whatever, like, nobody has the newest iPhone.
Exactly. Or like they didn't think to actually take a picture.
So what does that mean? Like, why is it? So it means two things. No one there owns an iPhone, or why is it people without a good phone always are the ones in the situations?
It means it didn't actually happen.
That's what I think so too.
Ba-dum-tsh.
That's what I'm thinking. Anyway, guys, that was week 43 of Spirits and Ghost Stories.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yep.
Sorry it was late, but we appreciate the
Yep.
views.
We do. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.